So Ty, we're a week into the new government and we've just received a copy of the programme for government for the new coalition, looking through the school section particularly. What are your thoughts?
Well, section 26 of our programme for government identifies very much the headlines of agreement for the new coalition. Not all of it a surprise. Major areas of convergence. I think one of the key headlines is looking at funding for pupils. We've seen with the previous government some increases, some quite substantial increases per pupil, but I think one of the questions that this new government has asked itself is, has that increased funding actually led to the eradication of disadvantage and inequality in the education system? So we're seeing a convergence within this coalition around setting up and introducing a new pupil premium. I think that's going to be interesting to see how that is rolled out. I think there's going to be some really interesting arguments around rural schools and deprivation. Certainly a lot of the head teachers that I've spoken to often comment, if they're from rural schools, about the funding mechanism not being at all fair for them. So I would suggest that's going to be one area to look at. As signalled during the campaign by Michael Gove, the new Secretary of State for Education, a supply-side revolution. Under the previous government we saw new providers, new concepts for schools around cooperative trusts, but also much more university involvement in new academies. I think you're going to see this whole area in terms of new providers expand. I think there's going to be a lot of energy, as has been signalled, around the concept of free schools and indeed freeing up schools. So free schools, there's been some really interesting work from the New Schools Network. There's certainly some vocal parents groups, not just in West London but all over the country, that I think are interested in this policy. And I think it's going to be really fascinating to see how the free schools, how charities get involved, how the third sector get involved, but also how this chimes with the Prime Minister's launch earlier this week of the big society. We're also seeing a continued emphasis about the development of the profession and teachers' professionalism. So I would expect investment to continue in the workforce. There's a whole emphasis in the new programme for government about protecting teachers from malicious allegations, about developing teacher professionalism. So that's coming across very, very clearly. It's early days. I think we're getting some messages around waste. We're getting some messages around the kind of localism agenda, and I think that's interesting too. Nothing specific about the role of local authorities, but clearly I think there'll be a faster development of local authorities to be facilitators, partners of change. I think also schools will welcome some of the initiatives, some of the headline initiatives in this programme for government document, but also I would say that they would see a number of the capacity issues as being a challenge for themselves as schools.
And also, Ty, we've heard on the grapevine about the Building Schools for the Future programme, only rumours at the moment about what happens for that. What are your thoughts on that as well?
Well, it is indeed rumours. It is the moment of clear heads and clear thinking. I think the government, certainly the Conservative part of the coalition, was asking itself some really serious questions in opposition around process, around waste, and around the elements of bureaucracy within some of the school capital investment programmes. And I think those questions are going to continue to be asked in government. The rumours, as you say, have been widespread. I think there's a certain deal of worry out there on both the schools and local authorities and the private sector. But I think what is happening is a rethink, and I think some of the questions that we all need to ask ourselves is quite clearly what worked, what didn't work, and in a time of economic challenge, what can we do to make a programme of schools capital investment work better for teachers, young people. And I think those are the questions, those key questions are what government are undertaking right now.